Hello, I have a new guest with me, Amber Erickson. Hello.
Hello.
Nice to meet you. You're from the United States. You're also a Microsoft employee. Are you here in Belgium for the very first time? Have you been before?
I've actually been to Belgium. I've been to Antwerp once before. Yeah. So this is my second time here.
Yeah, and you still like it or even more?
Even more, actually.
Did you have the chance to meet a little bit, to get outside and see a little bit more about the city all day long at the conference?
I did get a chance to go around. I'm actually a runner, so I did a run around the city, and that was really, really beautiful.
So very, very nice.
Yeah.
What's your experience this week with the conference? Did you meet a lot of interested and interesting people?
Yes, both of those. It's been really, really great, especially as an engineer. I'm often kind of siloed from the people who actually use our products. So, people reach out on GitHub, but I often don't get to see people face to face. So being here and getting to see and talk to people who are actually using our products has been really exciting. It's been really invigorating, and I've been loving it.
Yeah. That's, at the same time, the biggest advantage and the biggest disadvantage, we can connect via the internet. That's absolutely great and awesome, but that's not the same as meeting in a person one-to-one, right?
It's not at all.
Yeah. You mentioned your work. Tell us a little bit about what is your area of expertise? What are you working on?
Yeah, so I've actually been working on PSResourceGet, which is the new package manager for PowerShell. PowerShell Get was the old package manager. It's kind of gotten really old and clunky, and so we decided to work on rewriting that module. So that's what I've been working on. I also work on the PowerShell Gallery, so it's kind of the client-side to server-side experience of managing PowerShell packages.
May I ask, what is your personal background? Because I had Stephen Bucher here before, and he said, to be honest, when I was hired by Microsoft, I had not really an idea what is PowerShell, a totally different background. Or what was your background when you were hired by Microsoft?
Yeah, actually, so it was my first software engineering job. I didn't really know anything about PowerShell. I have to be honest. I used Mac, so I was more familiar with Unix systems. So I got a job at Microsoft, and it was kind of a big learning curve because I had to learn how to do everything on Windows. And at that time, PowerShell Core was just starting to become a thing. So things started to become cross-platform, and there was more of an emphasis on that. So that was kind of nice because I got to kind of develop in different environments, or at least test in different environments. But honestly, I didn't have a strong Windows background. And now that I've been working at Microsoft and kind of developing more in Windows, it's really hard for me to go back.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing. So, we're always making fun on the German keyboard on the Mac, there is no pipeline operator. And so all of a sudden, if you do the other way around, if you switch from Windows to Mac, you say, how can anyone work with that? And you had the opposite thing here. PowerShell Get is something that you already had before. You said that was a crappy, little bit outdated technology. We need to update that. But today we split into PowerShell 7, Windows PowerShell 5 world. How does reflect? How do you implement that? Because you can update PowerShell Get also for Windows PowerShell 5.1, right?
Yeah, that's the goal. So right now we have the PSResourceGet, which works for both Windows PowerShell 5.1 and then also, PowerShell 7 up. But I think one of the struggles that we are having, or one of the goals that we have, is to completely replace what is inbox in Windows PowerShell with the newer version.
Yeah. And future plans, or what's it going on when you go back to the United States? What will be the next step? Are you somehow now satisfied with the state so far, or is there a lot of work to do?
A lot of work to do. Yeah,
can you give a little bit insights? What are the next steps that you might want to talk about?
Yeah, so I think one of the big things is we want to broaden support for the types of servers that can be interacted with. So that's a really big thing. Another big thing is support for the different types of packages themselves. So right now we support PowerShell packages specifically, so just modules and scripts, DSC resources, but we want to have full NuGet support. So that's any kind of generic NuGet package. I'm also thinking about support for other types of files like targzs, kind of broader like OCI artifact, things that fall under the broader scope of an OCI artifact. So that's kind of where we're going, is just kind of broader support more generally and just a better support for things that exist as well.
I've been talking a lot about the first generation. I like to call them the first generation, Jeffrey Snover, Bruce Payette, and these guys that invented PowerShell, made it great. And now we have the second or third generation, which you were part of. What's your experience inside of Microsoft? I know that in the first generation, they're a little bit kind of aliens in Seattle. Did that change today? Do you feel like an alien running around and talking about the command line inside the bigger company?
I think, especially like within Azure and where we are, I think there's kind of a growing understanding of like the importance of PowerShell. And I think that's really, really great. People are starting to recognize that even, I think there was much more of a focus, for example, in the Azure portal on like the UI, because it's really flashy. It's like nice to show people, and people are starting to understand that people use PowerShell. They like to code for infrastructure instead of, clicking on buttons. So I think the acceptance of PowerShell is like slowly growing and expanding, and like the importance of it is becoming more prominent.
If I think about Azure Connection, there is one thing that that can be pretty disgusting in terms of performance. We face the situation that, think about the Microsoft Graph SDK, stuff like that. We have a huge amount of commandlets, auto-generated, so many parameters. And if you think about auto-completion, it can be really, it can limit the performance. The system, you type in something in, it can be getting laggy. And the thing is, what is the perfect solution to that problem? How can we improve the user experience in a world where we constantly get more commandlets and this problem rises, right? Have you thought about it? I'm sure you thought about that.
I don't have a solution for that. I think that's something that like we probably need to kind of mull over and like, kind of let simmer and kind of explore with a little bit more. I think that's a really valid concern, and I think it's like, I think users could have like parameter or commandlet fatigue, right? It's like, it's just too much. So I'm not sure what the solution for that is yet, but it's something that I think we can definitely work on. Yeah.
Yeah. If I think about Azure and all the integrations, I think about Azure Cloud Shell, which is, funny enough, Linux. Yeah. So what is your perfect host environment? What do you think is suitable if someone heavily is involved in cloud technology? Should he or she work, from your experience, with Visual Studio Code and downloading the modules on the machine, or would you prefer Azure Sign-In or integrating the Cloud Shell into Visual Studio Code, or maybe directly go in the browser, use Cloud Shell there? What do you think is the thing that works best?
That's a good question. I think this really comes down to preference. Like I personally, I mostly use Cloud Shell for quick things like in the browser, and that's pretty much it. Most of the time, everything is like localized for me. And then I, push to use, Azure Entra to like, Microsoft Entra to push to, the cloud. So that's how I develop. And I think for me, that has been the ideal situation. I know people maybe have different like preferences or different scenarios in which like they might prefer something else or prefer to use Cloud Shell a little bit more.
You said it's so nice to meet customers here, talk to real users. What has been your experience standing in front of a crowd, talking to people? I get, when you're labeled with Microsoft, expectations are always high, and always higher than a human being can adopt to that, right? Yeah. What is your experience with that?
Well, I think it's been nice that, everyone at this conference, first of all, has been like really like welcoming and accepting and friendly, and very kind. So that's been like really wonderful. I think there definitely is like a little, I think I was a little bit nervous, especially coming here the first time, like representing Microsoft, it was very nerve-wracking. But it's just really, really great. I think I've been really put at ease by everyone here. And there's just so many like brilliant people to learn from and, just hear about the situations, their scenarios and things like that. I think all of that has just like made me really excited about like what's going on, what people are doing at their like different companies, and then how we can continue to improve our products to make things easier for other people.
Did you get a lot of really clever and challenging questions from the people here?
Definitely,
did you expect it to be like that?
I think I went in really open-minded, so I didn't have like a particular expectation. I'm not surprised. I will say that. I'm not surprised. I kind of expected there obviously to be very brilliant, thoughtful people here.
Very experienced people.
Yes, exactly. So I'm not surprised by that, but I think I was I enjoyed the problems that people brought forward. So, yeah.
And it's obvious that it must be different if you stay in the United States. Everybody's speaking your own language. And now you come to Europe. There are cultural differences. People behave differently, have different opinions, of course. But all day long you have that broken English. So somehow, is that funny to you? What is their reception for that? Is that, do you see that maybe sometimes you need to explain things a little bit differently? We were always at the organizers, always joking, say, slow your speed a little bit down. The people here are in most cases not English natives. Is that challenging?
It hasn't been challenging for me. I think I grew up with like, my mom is from Ethiopia, and so she has a very strong accent. So I grew up with around a lot of people who have, very strong like broken English. And so I'm kind of used to it and I can understand it very easily. So like it's not, I honestly didn't think anything was like that broken or difficult. No one was like that difficult to understand here. It's okay.
That was
honestly. Honestly, the thing I've noticed is that like I'm impressed that everybody speaks so many different languages. And so I am a little ashamed as someone who only speaks English that I can't be able to kind of change my language and be able to communicate in different ways with other people. So.
Yeah, and all of a sudden you think about your personal background and how nice would it be if I would speak properly the language of my mother. Do you speak the language of your mother?
A little bit, but it's pretty bad.
Pretty
it's pretty
challenging.
Broken. Yeah, it's very challenging, yeah.
Have you ever thought about what would it be like to, so put it on your bucket list maybe, how would it be like to one day present in a foreign language?
I was actually talking to some people about that here because it's intimidating enough to just give a presentation, especially in front of, a group like this. But I was thinking there's so many people here who are giving presentations in English when it's not their native language. And I'm really impressed by that. I can't imagine how like nerve-wracking that must be. It's super impressive. I would love if I could one day give a presentation in a different language. So, that's on the bucket list.
Yeah, definitely. I can tell you, I do that all the time, yeah. And I always think, okay, you must improve your English. But of course, I know it's good enough for what it's worth. Trying it here and to get the information to the audience. To me, the hardest thing is to be funny.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because you need a kind of entertaining aspect that people are not getting. It can be so interesting, but after half an hour, maybe you fall asleep. And a good joke is something very valuable. And that is maybe the hardest thing, isn't it?
That makes a lot of sense. I think that's a really good point. It's hard enough, I think, to be funny in your native language, but then when there's a little bit of a language barrier, then that can make it even more difficult to have that kind of play with words or that comedic element.
Yeah, you're always struggling. Any plans to come back next year?
I would love to.
We
yes.
do hope so.
I really hope so too.
So my final question is, Do you have any opinions about the broader perspective? We're still stuck in that race with Windows PowerShell, PowerShell 7. There is no obvious solution to that. What do you think, on the long run, will be the topics that you personally are interested, that you would like to engage? Maybe a new team setting up, doing something, the next giant leap? Yeah. Any opinions what that could be?
That is a good question. I think, working on kind of the package management experience, I'm thinking a lot about that type of stuff. Things that have kind of like bothered me and I know that have bothered the community. I think for me, that giant leap, although this might not seem like a giant leap for other people, is improving like the module path experience for users. That's a big thing for me. In my head, that is a giant leap, but I know that may not externally seem like a giant leap. But I don't know what that huge next giant leap is going to be, the way that I think maybe like the Windows PowerShell to kind of the PowerShell core, PowerShell 7 experiences.
Sometimes simply polishing the product is the most valuable thing that you can do.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you for your time, safe travels, and enjoy when you're back. Do a lot of good things. Enjoy the work on the PowerShell team.
Thank you. Thank you. It was nice chatting.
Thank you.